Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. I'm back with a brand new What If. I know it's been a little bit. I think it's been either 3 or 4 days. I just needed to gather up an idea, and I wanted to get this all set in stone. And also, I wanted to start on Monday, and then that's when I was going to try to iron out the rest of my month for a good schedule. But nonetheless, I hope y'all enjoy this brand new What If. What if Deku was a bio android? I saw this suggested not too long ago, but also this did get suggested a long time ago as well, and I just never got around to it. So we're doing it now. We're doing What If Deku was a bio android, and this is going to be a little bit different than normal stories of My Hero Academia. So if y'all enjoy, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And yeah, that's about it. And let's get into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya is different. Far different in this story. Inko Midoriya, his mother, begins to have a whole different outlook on the world. But that's all because of her profession. Her profession in this regard is a scientist. She's a scientist with one other person that she's been relatively close friends with for a little while now, but they've been working endlessly around quarks, around where they came from and what would happen if quarks continue to evolve. They were actually under someone that they didn't know exactly who it was. A top mob boss by the name of Overhaul was the person at the very top for them, but they didn't even know who this was. They just knew that they got supplied with a certain amount of money, and it allowed them to continue their research. Their research would tell them various things, a lot about quarks and a lot about what could happen in the near future. During this time though, Inko would get pregnant with her baby boy by the name of Izuku Midoriya, 3 years prior to normal, when Izuku normally gets born. But here's the main issue. When Izuku is born, there seemingly is a problem with the young child. It seems as if the young child isn't able to more or less live on his own. It seems as if breathing is even a hard thing for this young child. Izuku begins to struggle throughout 1 to 2 years. He's just a young baby trying to just survive at this point. His mother, Inko Midoriya, has no idea what to even do, but eventually the idea of bringing him into the lab would come about. And this would come about because after one night, Izuku would flatline, and the baby would, well, unfortunately pass away. But Inko would refuse to let that be the end. She would bring the young child to the lab, and they would begin experiments, putting him in a giant incubation tube and continue working with cell after cell. It seems as if they begin to use the DNA of various other people to continue research on basically curing or saving Izuku. But is that truly all she wanted to do? Is that really all Inko wanted, was to just save Izuku? Izuku Midoriya unfortunately would be denounced dead. So there was no necessarily saving him anymore. She began to do experiments on his body in a chamber, like I said before. But all of these experiments began to dive deeper and deeper into her own psyche. Her and her partner, or lab partner at that, began to do experiments via DNA, getting DNA from various amounts of heroes that they could get their hands on relatively easily. Top heroes would have interviews, would have spots in their agencies, would have fan meetups. All of these things would allow them to get some sort of DNA. In doing this though, it seems as if every single last one of them were able to get DNA for all of these heroes. Inko would be funded by the Shia Hazaikai, especially with the amount of money they were pulling in. This project would continue on. Overhaul began to believe that this right here was a project that could have been, well, transcended in time, could truly be groundbreaking. Now what they're making is something special. He doesn't know the details in specific form, but he does know they're making some sort of, well, person or creature that can withstand quirk on quirk on quirk, but not in a way of a monster, an adaptive creature or human being that would take on the DNA of the likes of Endeavor, the likes of All Might, the likes of Overhaul. All of these people, that's what they would take on. But also, on top of that, many pro heroes. Izuku would continue to be built within this lab, or created for say. Years would pass on, and Izuku would begin growing in the tube as if he were growing like a normal kid. From the age of 1 to 2 to 5 to 10, all of these years would pass by, but Izuku would accelerate in age rapidly, far quicker than anyone would imagine. On top of this, Inko's partner that she didn't even really know their name, only going by the code name Time, was something interesting. Time was a female, a woman with white hair, and she was trying to do a certain experiment, bringing the DNA of a young child to Izuku's, well, containment tank. She would add that said DNA and watch as it would react with the other quirks that are within Izuku, or at least with the other DNA that is within Izuku. Inko would ask what's going on, and everything would begin to get revealed. The scientist, other known as codename Time, would begin speaking with Inko and introducing herself as someone extremely important to all of this. There's a reason why she's been working alongside Inko, and a reason why Overhaul has her here. And that reason is because of her daughter, Eri. Inko begins to learn more and more about this child. Eri is powerful. Eri is extremely powerful. But at the time, she was kept in an incubation chamber as well, so that nobody else would know about her. And this was just for the safety of the Shiha Hazaikai and the future of them as well. They want to wipe this place off the face of the planet, or wipe all quirks off the face of the planet, so Eri is crucial. And of course, Inko would look into the database about what Izuku now has, and it seems like he has some sort of rewind-esque quirk, but his powers are so different. The making of Izuku is different. Izuku is a combination of many. Combinations of IQs of All Might, Endeavor, and many other heroes, but also villains alike, anything they possibly could have gotten. But it's really not that simple. Izuku may be powerful, may potentially be strong, but as the time would pass by and it would be finally time for him to take his steps out of the chamber, he would do just that. He would take his steps out and he would be around the age of 16, at least based on his body type. But he would look around at his arms, his legs, and the technology all around, and he'd feel odd, as if he isn't actually there, as if he's connected to this sort of body unconditionally, as if he can't move, as if he's locked in, as if he has no control. And immediately Izuku would begin to walk, but he would feel as if he couldn't move at all, but everything else was moving. He would look around and he would sit down at the request of Inko and the agent Time. They would sit there and wait and stare at Izuku and begin to speak with him, asking certain questions, and Izuku would not react and not talk at all. It seems kind of odd. They think that maybe he's incomplete, maybe he's broken, but Izuku would then begin to see everything that occurred before this. His life flashing before his eyes, and many other things that he didn't even realize could have occurred all in a matter of seconds, this rushes back to him, and he gasps for air as if he just came out of water while holding his breath for hours. He breathes in deep, coughs slightly, but then now has full regain of his body, of the body that was gifted to him. He speaks to the people in front of him, asking who they are. Inko introduces herself as his mother. He looks at her oddly, not feeling any connection to her or the one next to her. But oddly enough, the woman with the white hair next to Inko feels more connected to him than even Inko does. But that's because of Eri. He has a connection with Eri and has that DNA as well. He would look around to see many other incubation chambers, many with the label of failed. Of course, he would continue to walk as he sees one more, a young girl within that incubation chamber. He would stare at it slightly and put his hand on the glass window. As he does, the incubation chamber begins to crack, and Eri wakes up immediately and smashes through the glass and just lays there unconscious. They're shocked, thinking Izuku broke it, but Izuku tells them that he didn't break anything, picking the young girl up and wrapping her in a blanket. Izuku looks at them, saying that he has a connection with this one. He wants to know why. An explanation is told, and of course he kind of knew why this would be the case and knew exactly what would happen. Izuku was interested in what's going on and even asked what kind of business do they want from him. Why would they bring him back to life? He obviously was just a child when, well, he died and he passed away. But why? Why would they bring him back? They could have done this with anybody. And frankly, it probably would have been easier. Izuku makes this abundantly clear, and it's explained that, well, Inko wanted her son, and the potential that Izuku possibly had was endless, especially with who they were and how smart Inko is, and so is his father. Izuku sort of buys this, but also thinks that there must be an overarching idea and an overarching plan that they have in wait, and even questions it. And Inko tells him to not really worry, that there's no plan exactly set right now. But then Izuku would begin to question them further, asking the woman with the white hair who this girl is to her, explaining that that is her daughter. He asks if her daughter was killed just like him and was revived via all of this. And the white-haired girl, or the white-haired woman, or Time, hesitates and then says that she was killed and brought back. Izuku knows that this is a lie, but just decides to keep that to himself, nodding slightly and begins to ask who was able to basically allow this all to happen. Obviously, there has to be an overarching person. He has all of this DNA, so he assumes it's one of them, or one of the people in his DNA, but who is it? They explain that it's Overhaul from the Shia Hazaikai, and that is who they work for. Izuku nods and begins to think that maybe it's time to leave and test out his strengths and abilities. He begins to walk out, but then decides to stop, backing up and grabbing the little girl that's in a blanket, telling them to keep her out of the incubation chamber, that if they don't, that will be an issue. They're going to restrict her power, and, well, it's going to restrict her growth in general. And he can assume that her power is extremely potent. I mean, he can feel it boiling within himself, and he has no idea how to control it. Izuku would walk out and tell them that he'll be back. He wants to test something out. He leaves with all of the knowledge of, well, literally everything that he needs to know. From Inko, from Time, or from the white-haired woman, or Eri's mother, from Eri, as little as what she knows, All Might, Endeavor, Overhaul, everything you can possibly think of, the DNA and basically the knowledge was given to him. He begins to go around, looking around as he comes across the building, seeing his reflection. His reflection is a giant-like monster. He seems odd to this. They didn't react to it at all, but how is that even possible? He sees that his skin is a bit scaly and a bit changed, but once he focuses hard enough, he begins to change into the form that he most resembles by. It's the normal version of himself. He begins to walk around, look around, see everybody and everything. As he continues to walk, he comes across something going on. He comes across a giant ruckus. This giant sludge villain is running around destroying thing after thing. Izuku heads over to see what's going on, looking around to see that there's no heroes that are able to really help out and even stop it. So he decides something. He's no hero, but he does need a bit of a fight, and he does need to test his strength. He begins to head over and walk toward the villain. He heads over and many try to stop him, but it's as if there's this aura of strength and power that pushes everybody away. Not necessarily push them physically, but they watch as he walks up, and none of them even try to stop him. He walks over to the sludge villain as the sludge villain grabs onto him and tries to take over his body, but Izuku doesn't even flinch. He spits out the sludge himself, and all this electricity begins to surround the sludge villain as he begins to scream in pain and just explode. Izuku would look around and see that everybody is completely shocked, completely flabbergasted. How is he able to do that? No, this is bad. He's not even a hero. He's just a kid. Izuku would jump off in a matter of seconds and be gone. But of course, he altered his appearance before he did this. He wants to walk around in the form he wants to walk around in, so now he's in something that nobody will necessarily recognize. News would quickly spread of this random person, someone that nobody knew, instantly destroying a villain that was rampaging against heroes that had nothing that they can even do or possibly do. Agencies, hero schools, and all alike would be trying to find out who this person was. He seemed like a teenager, some random kid that just came across a ton of power and just stepped in front of a hero's job. Out of nowhere, he just came about, and wow, they would be pretty correct on that regard, but of course they don't know that for sure. Izuku would head back to the lab, and when he would arrive, he would be told by his mother that that was a horrible idea. He's going to expose himself, out himself, but Izuku questions why it even matters. Why exposing himself matters to that degree. He wants to learn more about this place. He knows so little. He knows all that maybe these others know, but it's from a very concise perspective, and he has so many of them that it's as if it's more confusing that way. It's all narrowed down. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be able to put on a set of goggles and see things clearly through his own eyes, through his own well-constructed eyes. He tells them this and begins to leave, but just as he does, he's stopped by a figure with a mask on, telling him to go sit back down. Izuku doesn't know what he's talking about and just pushes past him, but just as he does, his life flashes in and out in a matter of seconds, and he breathes in as if he was drowning for hours. He begins to pant, and he looks toward the man. What the hell did you just do? Overhaul tells him to go sit down now. He does just that, and Overhaul explains something to him. That he was created for the sole purpose of changing this world, changing society. What he has isn't necessarily quirks. What he has is power, and he needs to use it how he's supposed to use it, not how he wants to use it. Izuku looks at the man that just did this to him, and this information, well, he gets is extremely crucial. Not only that, he was given information about how the powers that Overhaul holds himself works. So for now, Izuku needs to play nice. He looks at Overhaul and tells him that he's fine with that. He'll go along with whatever he wants him to do, and what would that like to be? And Overhaul says that he's not against the idea of him getting experience, narrowing those goggles, but he'll need to do that in a different way. They need to reveal who he is, but nicely, as if he's a protector, someone that will truly stand for the rights of everyone, someone that would be built in a lab but relatable at the same time, someone that's been torn apart from his own family in a way, torn apart from his body, recreated into a being that is truly a protector of many. Izuku hears all of what Overhaul is saying. He then tells him that he'll do just that. He'll follow in whatever he wants to do, and he'll go along with this whole plan. And Overhaul tells him good, that he doesn't have a choice in this anyways. And he begins to explain to him exactly what they want to do. And that all has to do with information. He wants solid information. He lays out a simple plan and tells him that there's a couple things he needs to get done. First of all, he's young enough to enroll in one of the high schools. He doesn't care what high tier high school, low tier high school, or the highest of tier high schools in UA. He doesn't care, and it doesn't matter. He just needs to get into one. That's all that matters. He's smart enough to do that, and he should know all the material relatively easily, especially with his high intellect, which he assumes was given to him. He begins to look around as Inko and obviously Eri's mother nod, and he begins to explain further that he just needs to do this, and then on top of that, he needs to get in with the League of Villains. Izuku's confused. He wants him to get into a hero school, but also be part of one of the most notorious villain groups. That doesn't really make sense. And of course, Overhaul says that it doesn't have to make sense, that he just needs to do it, because he needs leverage. He needs to be able to have or be able to get information on the side of the heroes, but maybe even be an informant for the villains. Izuku hears this and nods about it. And just as he begins to think more and more about a plan, Overhaul is gone. Inko asks if Izuku is okay, and Izuku says that he's fine. He's just fine. That's what he needed. It's just a bit of a wake-up call. He walks out without saying another word, and Izuku begins to head to a location that he believes he can find the League of Villains. As he arrives, he begins to look around, and he's grabbed and dragged into a building. As he's pulled in, Shigaraki and many others surround him, including a giant monster-like creature. Izuku tells him that, well, that's exactly the person he's been looking for. And immediately Shigaraki puts his hand to Izuku's throat, leaving one finger off, telling him that he'll kill him right now if he doesn't speak quickly. Izuku does just that, telling him that he needs to get into this little league. And immediately he thinks that this is some sort of setup. Izuku tells him that this is no setup. Exactly what he heard on the news is correct. Shigaraki's confused. What, kid? You mean you're telling me that you're just some random guy that just appeared out of nowhere? You're telling me that you're just a random guy that just came out of nowhere? Izuku smirks slightly, and as Shigaraki has come to his own conclusion and realized that Izuku is serious. He really is a person that's just appeared out of nowhere. He questions one last time if Izuku is some sort of lab experiment. He looks at Izuku once again and silence fills the room, and he says that he doesn't even want to know. He tells him that if he can benefit the League of Villains, feel free, but other than that, why would they even have him here? They have no idea what he can do. Izuku explains that he wants to join them, but at the same time, he'll do something very crucial because he needs information as well from some other people. He'll be an informant on the inside of UA High School. Izuku begins to say this, and Shigaraki is shocked as if he somehow figured out that this would be the case and that they needed this. But of course, Izuku makes it abundantly clear that he didn't really know that they needed this. But he did know that every good villain group needs information, an informant, and that's who they got. They say they have one other person to do so as well, and Izuku is about to tell them that they don't need him to join or need him to go, but they say that that is not a choice because All For One has already picked him out and have gifted him a quirk. Izuku shrugs and says that's fine, but tell him to stay out of his way. Of course, that can be arranged, and that would be just fine, and they don't see anything wrong with that at all. And frankly, it works out better this way. They're going to have two people in there, two people to slightly work together, but at the same time gather information that maybe one of them wouldn't get. So Izuku leaves, and they're completely confused, and obviously they don't really care exactly what happens to Izuku, and they can tell that there is no connection between them. Of course, Izuku can do whatever the hell he wants, but he has no information about the League of Villains. Literally zero. So if he decides not to help them, well then he decides not to help them. But All For One comes up on the screen and says that Shigaraki did a good thing. He weighed the risks, he weighed the rewards. The rewards are far higher than the risks at this moment, and if the boy decides to go off on his own and do whatever he wants, well then he does that. But if he tends to come back and threaten them, well they'll deal with what needs to be dealt with. Of course, this is exactly what Shigaraki wanted to hear, and they're happy to hear that everyone is on board. Izuku would arrive finally at UA. Days would pass, and eventually it would be the UA entrance exam. Izuku would fly through it with flying colors, and frankly, there would be some question marks about where he came up, but they would have proper documentation that would say a certain middle school that he went to, far away, that many didn't really know about, and some other information that they needed to know. Birth records and birth certificates and stuff like that. Izuku would continue, take tests, and pass them with relative ease, flying colors at that, eventually leading to the entrance exam, or the practical version of it. The gates would swing open, and just like how you would expect, Izuku destroys robots after robots, even testing out some powers that had him very interested, revealing some sort of fire-like power by touching a robot and making it melt instantaneously, and on top of that, using Overhaul's quirk at the same time to basically disassemble a robot entirely as well. Izuku's testing out his powers here and there. And eventually the zero-pointer would be revealed. Izuku would stare at it and slightly smirk. As he begins to float into the air, he basically flies at the zero-pointer and utterly and totally obliterates it. Izuku can feel that that would be the max of his power. He just basically emptied out the tank. Don't get me wrong, he's not exhausted by any means, but he also doesn't know much about his powers in totality. He's only been really kicking for a little bit. So he doesn't know what's his full and max potential. Maybe he'll find out soon, but right now he's definitely restricted. With that said though, Izuku would float back down, land on the ground, and hear the alarms go, saying that the, entrance exam is over. But in the stands, the teachers are watching. The agency is watching. Heroes alike are watching. Where the hell did this kid come from, and how is he so strong? Aizawa, Nezu, All Might, and many others watch on in complete awe, but at the same time, in complete confusion. It seems like he has no drawbacks. It seems like he has no weakness. What is he? Is he somehow some otherworldly monster that they didn't even know about? Or does he have some sort of perfected quirk, and is this the new stage of quirk evolution that they didn't even know about? Some kid just comes out of nowhere with power that is beyond some regular quirk? Is this the next evolution to life? They don't even know. They're trying to think of anything. They look at his records, and even medical records are so slim to none, they know very little. All it says for his quirk is that he has some sort of strength enhancement. That's it. They know that's not the case. He has to have more, but where does he even come from? What is even going on? Well, they're gonna have to find out. especially after they allow him into UA, because those results do not lie. But you will have to find out what happens next in the next part of What If Deku Was a Bio Android. And if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a sub, make sure to leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And yeah, as always, I hope y'all enjoyed. Sorry for the delay on this one. I've been just really busy, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, that's about it. Hope y'all enjoyed. Later.